One morning I got a phone call from Patsy Pollock, who's a very, very close friend and a very, very beautiful woman. And she said, I've got this script and I think you're really good for it. And so she sent it to me, and it was The Disappearance of Finbar, and I read it, and straight away that morning at about 9 o'clock I was undecided between the two characters because Danny gets more airtime within it. But I knew I was never going to play that Finbar was closest to me, and what I found attracted me to Finbar, and what I also found in myself was his faults. And his faults were very much mine, and so was his dreams. And he wanted everybody to be at peace with him. He wanted love from his family, and essentially he wanted to fly, which he did. Your dreams are very important, and for some people they have this thing which they call their fate and destiny. Well, everybody has, I think, a destiny, and some people also have a fate. And I'm not sure they're the same thing. They're very, very similar. But for some people, it's not written at all unless they write it themselves. So they've been presented a blank page. Now you can either fold it up and make a little aeroplane out of it and fly it out the window, or you can take a pen and start writing it yourself. And I think I got a blank page, because anything I do, I'm going to have to do it myself. I'm going to have to be my own author. And the same with Finbar. In Finbar, the influence of his parents is quite huge. Maybe as a young man, quite positively, because he has got a lot of love for them. So there was some affection at some point. But it slowly turned to a bitterness, because I suppose when children are young and their parents are young, the children get more affection because the parents still believe they can have their dreams. But as they grow older and their dreams don't happen, it turns on the kids to have their dreams. And Finbar was so strong in his own dream that he couldn't be intercepted by another for any length of time. And I think that's the reason why he had to run away from playing football. And he also had to run away from his family when he eventually came back and found that it wasn't open arms for him, it was more like crossed daggers. It is very, very difficult, because I've never been a courageous boy, and Finbar isn't a courageous boy. Courageous people do not run away. They stand. And he's constantly running away. But I think throughout the film you can see him slowly admitting it to himself, and he's almost got this sneering humour about his cowardness. And I was a big coward as well. I suppose that's why I was so close to what he was doing. And I had this wonderful man called Francois, who was my stunt person, and he was fabulous. And he made me feel as comfortable as he could, but it wasn't easy, but I chose to do it, and so I had to block my mind, and my heart became rosier after it, because I'd actually done something and challenged myself physically, mentally, and faithfully. Basically, it's 4 stunts to make up the one sequence. There was a half-built flyover in Fetakarn, and I had to climb on this, and I had to originally lean forward as if I was falling, but I had a wire attached to me and bouncing a football. And then the most dangerous one was the Lucan bypass, which I did twice in like 2 very different shots of it. And I think that was the scariest, because I had trucks going under me and 50 feet dropping, such like. And of course I had to drop out of that also, which is very difficult. But Francois did a lot of stuff. The most dangerous stuff, because that has to be done. I have to continue to play out the story. But I did as much as I could, as much as my heart would let me. Then we built a platform that was maybe 8 feet high, maybe 9 feet, 10 feet maybe. And mattresses below. I had to fall clean past the camera at a very, very, just inches past it, which was quite scary, which I didn't know at that time, that if I'd hit the camera I could have been hurt pretty badly, but it didn't seem to matter. The relationship between Finbar and Danny it's difficult in the sense that they meet after 3 years, and they're very, very good friends. But when they rekindle their relationship, they find that they're strangers who've learnt and grown in different circles, and they find themselves not clicking, even though they really, really want to feel that energy that they once felt between themselves. And with Luke personally, when I first met him as just Luke, we started to get on quite well, and then for some reason we drifted and started to not get on as well, and there was, I suppose, little bits of jealousy within two young actors, one who's never actually acted before and another who's acted and had some experience and is older, and there was also a 6-year gap between us, and so he had a different mind at that point. It's the same. I think it paralleled the characters and what we were feeling, and the emotions we were using, and the emotions we were manipulating while we were doing it. And it eventually ends out in happiness for Danny, and in a new lease of life for him. And for Finbar, the unknown, which is what he wanted to do, because when you fly into the unknown. The people of the Arctic and the general Arctic itself is one of the most magical places I've ever been to. Whereas I found it very, very difficult being up there, being away from home, shooting a film for the first time, not feeling totally confident within myself, because you don't really at 17, but at the same time having some fun. And I wasn't very, very mature, and I think people realised that I wasn't very, very mature, and so I got away with a lot of things, but a lot of things I did not get away with. But the people up there they were from a different time. They had antique thoughts. They had a culture that, for some people, hadn't been touched in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. That was so beautiful and pure, and it's the most beautiful and pure place I think I've ever been. I've never felt cleaner than when I've been in Kiruna. It was probably one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. And the blistering sun, the beautiful snow, the beautiful light that it shines in people's faces. They suddenly become angels. Everybody becomes an angel. I did a film with Stephen Polyakov called The Tribe. I finished that and went to the United States and did a film with Tim Hunter called The Maker. After that I went and did a film called Telling Lies in America. After that I did Bee Monkey with Michael Radford. Then Velvet Goldmine with Todd Haynes. The Governess with Sandra Goldbarker. The Loss of Sexual Innocence with Mike Figgis. Ride with the Devil with Ang Lee. Titus Andronicus with Julie Taymor. And then Gormenghast with Andy Wilson for the BBC, the Millennium Project. I learned that I did not know everything. And that's a presumption you make when you're a kid. And I think what I've learned from the point of my professional career is trying to be an actor is, unthinkable. I mean, if I did the part now, I'd have much more control over what I do, and I'd understand it a lot more. When I did Disappearance of Finbar, I wasn't acting, I was being it. I didn't know any other way to be. But I think my experiences out of it have definitely been in the identification that I was in a different world that I'd never even thought about embracing. Kiruna was such a different experience from a boy from my background. Everything seemed so clean and fresh and rich and new. And here I was in this film with people constantly surrounded, saying hello, Johnny, every single morning. So it wasn't like I didn't feel unwanted anymore. I felt wanted in a way that I was worth something, which I think a lot of kids who are brought up in areas which aren't as affluent are made in society to feel they're not worth the same. And so it's much more difficult because, the possibilities for education are not the same. The possibilities for getting a job are not the same if you come from a certain area. It does make a difference. It makes a difference in social friends who can get you just moving, because friends are very, very essential if you want to get on in the world. And for a lot of kids in those areas, you either, sing or act or dance or kick or box your way out. And, it's changing slowly but surely, because the world is now becoming much smaller and information is becoming more available to everybody. And I think people are becoming more accessible to a broad-minded intelligence. And so the kids who are in those areas and who have had that background of not having, realize that they can fulfill their dreams.